You want to be able to show your audience what it's like to work with you and what your day-to-day looks like. You want to help demystify what that process looks like.
Hello, welcome to episode 218 of the Smart Agents Podcast. As always, my name is Michael Walter, and I'll be your host. On today's episode, we are joined by visual storytelling expert and photographer John DeMato. After a career in television production, John found a passion for photography and now works with clients to create compelling imagery that elevates their brand, builds credibility, and connects deeper with their audiences. As a real estate professional, your clients are almost certainly being introduced to you through your photos before meeting in person, so it's imperative that you are able to convey the right message throughout those still images. Over the course of our conversation, John touches on the different types of photos you should have in your marketing portfolio and how to leverage them. He also shares his advice for finding the right photographer to fit your needs. But before we get on with today's featured interview, if you or someone else on your team has an incredible story of real estate success or tips to share with our community, send us a message to feedback@smartagents.com. We're always on the lookout for new guests to inspire our listeners. And lastly, if you enjoyed this conversation and want to hear more, be sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents Podcast. We stream on all major podcasting platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and of course, YouTube. All right, let's get on with our conversation with John DeMato. If you're interested in learning more about building authority through still images, be sure to check out John's blog at johndemato.com/blog. All right. Well, really the way I like to start everything out is if you could introduce yourself to us a little bit. You're definitely in, the photography background and more the media background. So I'd love to hear how you got into what you're doing.
So first of all, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Anytime I get a chance to talk about pictures, I get excited. I am a branding, event, and book photographer for experts who speak on stages, they write books, they coach, consult, as well as train different people. And my job is to align their visuals with their messaging in order to present themselves as the authority in their space to those who they serve. That's pretty much the gist of it.
Right. And tell me a little bit about how you got into that. What was kind of your path to, starting working with, these experts and getting their stories to come across in pictures?
So for 9 years, I worked as a field producer for a talk show, The Maury Show, here in New York, and as well when we moved to Stamford, Connecticut. And eventually, I just got kind of burned out on that kind of work. But during that time, I found a passion for photography, specifically street photography, just walking around the streets and taking pictures of interesting people, places, and things that I thought were interesting. And over time, that evolved to headshot photography. And then that evolved into photographing more types of portraits. And then I had the moment where I decided it was time to leave TV in the background and pursue photography. So what I ended up doing is started out as a headshot photographer, realized I had no idea how the hell to run a business or market myself, and then proceeded to have 3 years of freaking out trying to figure out what I was going to do. And then eventually I came across these interesting people who spoke on stages and shared all of these amazing insights that actually was resonating with me, the person, not me, the photographer, that, I should work with them. And I naturally gravitated more towards these folks. And the next thing you know, I've niched my business that specifically serves experts as well as other professional expert adjacent type services.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for our audience, we primarily cater to, the boots on the ground real estate agent or broker. But we, a lot of folks in that space do get into coaching, whether that is, fellow agents, they want to run their own brokerage, or they hold seminars for, local buyers and sellers. So I really feel like a lot of the advice that, and the things that you've learned through working with your experts are going to be super applicable to our audience, because really at the end of the day, as a real estate agent, you're trying to portray yourself as that local expert and authority on your market.
Absolutely. And you're also trying to position yourself as a human being, which is what I have done with several coaches in the real estate space in the past. And, at first when they reached out to me, my thought was, is there an alignment there? But when you actually dive deeper into what agents and buyers agents do. I mean, it's a service industry. It's built on relationships and in many cases, long-term relationships. Therefore, it's all the same stuff. So what I do with people, whether they speak on a stage or they're running an open house, there are major overlaps between the two.
Yeah. So in the time that, when you started taking the headshots and the portrait photography, what was some of the things that you learned and then could kind of coach, the people that you were photographing how to build that connection to their audience through those headshots and through those singular images?
Well, Michael, even before taking headshots, what I realized while working on Maury, the talk show, is the power of emotion and how that helps influence people's decision making as to whether or not, in the case of the show, it's do I want to keep watching and see what happens? But in the case of professional real estate agents, then the question becomes, do I like this person enough to trust them, to hand them the keys to be able to sell this property? Or on the other side, do I trust them enough to be able to look out for my best interest when showing me different properties based on what I'm looking for? So emotion really is the linchpin to all of this. And that's why when it comes to sharing your image content, it's not just about looking good. The vanity component is important because it is a prerequisite. If you don't like how you look, you're not going to use the photo. But beyond that, the value of the image really comes in to how it plays within your overall visual storytelling in terms of, how are you using these images to create greater impact with the words that you are sharing with those images. And those words could be anywhere, whether it's on a printed piece of like a leaflet or a brochure or a PDF, could be your website, your online content, whatever the case may be. Showing genuine aspects of your personality in order to convey that emotive tone to potential, clients is what it's all about.
Yeah. So when somebody is, whether they're a new agent or they've been in the game for a while, they need to, kind of up their, refresh their headshot photos or, whatever kind of marketing photos they have. Conveying emotion for people that aren't, in the necessarily the media space or have had, experience doing what you've done. I think the concept of conveying emotion through a single still image is kind of hard to wrap your brain around sometimes. So what are some of the things that you coach your clients to do to help them convey that emotion?
Sure. Well, one of the biggest ways that you can convey emotion in any photo is the way in which you position your eyes, eyebrows, and mouth, the expressions on your face, the body language that you're conveying in the image, the activity in which you are engaged in front of the camera. All of the, and the environment itself as well. When you take into account all of those different pieces, that's really where you start to see, oh, this is what I feel when I look at this photo. And whatever that emotion may be, or that sentiment that is conveyed in whatever is coming from that image, if you pair that emotion with a story that has that same resonance, now, all of a sudden, instead of just picking a photo, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, slap it on top of the copy, and then the thing is done, whatever that asset happens to be, you're now being more intentional and purposeful in how you are putting together impactful stories and impactful content for your audience. And it provides a more genuine sense of not just how you can help solve their problem, but also who you are as a person. Because again, part of deciding whether or not an agent is right for you depends upon not just their expertise and the fact that they have continuously proven to deliver for their clients, but also, can I stomach this person and be in the same room with them and collaborate with them? And you have to make sure that that aspect is also put on display for people so that they have that chance to qualify that aspect of the relationship.
Right. So, outside of a headshot photo, what are some of the different ways that people can, get their image out there, but then also, their personality? I have to imagine, you talk about, event photography and things like that, and having, collecting photos and images of when you are interacting with clients, I think has, definitely be a big way for agents to do that.
So, Michael, the way that I break it down is into two large buckets, because it can get quite overwhelming to keep track of all of the different types of moments that matter that should be shared with your audience. But if you look at it high levelly from the promotional photo aspect and the lifestyle candid photo aspect, these are the two major buckets. And within the promotional bucket, we're talking about the headshots, as you mentioned. Now, a headshot is, a tightly cropped shot from the top of the head to the top of the chest. That is it. Everything else, where you're looking directly into the camera, is a portrait. You want to have a mixture of those tight profile photos that you can use for your social and your website and possibly your email signature and some other places as well. But you also want some wider photos as well to show more of who you are, show more of your personality and what you're wearing, leverage the environment in which the image was taken so that it provides a larger context into your personality. Those photos are very personality driven because the most important aspect of that shot is your facial expression, those types of images. Then when we talk about the candid lifestyle images, you want to be able to show your audience what it's like to work with you and what your day-to-day looks like. You want to help demystify what that process looks like. Show your audience how the sausage is made. Because when you show them how you they do the research on the back end, how they interact with their clients, whether it's on a screen or in person, show them at events and connecting with others and leading an event, being on the stage or in front of the room speaking. All of these things matter because they, aside from showing your process and help, as I said before, demystify the process, what they also do is provide credibility, because you talk about being this, empathetic and confident and knowledgeable agent. Well, you need to show your people what that looks like, because otherwise it's just noise. So that helps reinforce your credibility through these types of images.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, so many times I look at different agents, whether it's an Instagram profile or whatever it is, and you see a ton of photos of their listings, and then each one of them just has that headshot kind of plastered in the bottom corner. There's no images, no pictures of them, interacting with their buyers or, right, walking through a home, or even just interacting with people in their community at community events. So you never get that sense that they are really a major part of the community and an advocate for the community.
Right. And what you're also missing out on is the opportunity to show that you're a human being.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You talked about when it came to the headshot and the portrait photography, and with the portrait being able to utilize your environment. Do you recommend for agents to have their photos taken outside of a studio and in a real, in a space where they can, show off more of an environment? So
my background is all studio. And in fact, my studio was my living room that's about 12 feet from here. Over time, I stopped doing the studio look because what I realized is the people that I serve are best served by having their images taken in environments because they don't live in voids. And that philosophy applies to agents as well. I was actually speaking with a headshot photographer colleague and friend of mine the other day, and I mentioned, I've been really thinking about these studio shots, these blank walls. I think they apply really well if it's a corporate environment, if there's 500 people and the uniformity of those blank backgrounds makes that very clean look. That makes sense. But if you're an independent, even if you have a small team, it makes more sense to be photographed in an environment. For the agents and the coaches that I've worked with in the past in this space, we've shot one place we shot was a co-working space that had an aesthetic behind it that kind of works for her brand. And then the other woman that I photographed was actually in one of the agents, like home office, not home office, one of the brokerage's office, and we made that work. The point being is, it's kind of boring. For a lack of a better phrase, it's kind of boring to shoot against a blank wall, but also just again, these people are out and about. They're in different spaces. They're helping to buy, helping someone to buy, helping someone to sell. It just makes more sense aesthetically and just thematically to shoot outside.
Yeah, absolutely.
Space. Yeah,
most definitely. And then I think, anytime, if an agent is hosting, maybe they have a yearly past client get together or some kind of a seminar that they're hosting for local buyers or sellers. I think an investment on hiring an event photographer for that is going to pay itself off tenfold. And,
I 100% agree. And I've been in some of those rooms for other types of clients. And the thing about those images that happen at events, it's not just about the photos to provide FOMO to people to be like, I need to sign up for this next event. There's multiple ways to leverage these assets beyond that of the context of selling this particular event, in that the organizer can use these photos out of context and leverage the emotion that we talked about earlier in these photos to be able to talk about other stuff that's related to what they do with their clients. In addition, whoever shows up in front of that room and speaks, those images are valuable for them to be able to leverage in their own way, whether showcasing, what they did in that room and the moments that they helped create for the participants sitting in, or they can again take it out of context and leverage the emotion of that image and use it for their stuff. In addition, if you happen to share these photos with the community of people that showed up, they have the opportunity to share these images. Now, whether or not they use it for their marketing or just want to have these photos and share on social, the point is these images have wide-ranging applications to be shared, not just to sell, but also to use in other capacities for everyone that was in that room.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it really gives you that opportunity to capture those genuine moments when you are interacting with somebody. Because, a good event photographer, you don't even know they're there, as the person that has, hired them to be there, they're so good at kind of blending in and capturing those really candid moments. And those are the images that I think really go a long way for agents to, show off their ability to connect with their community.
100%. I take great pride in being very stealth. And
yes.
The thing about that is, for the speaker, the last thing you want to do is be a distraction. Not just because they're in the middle of presenting something to an audience, you don't want to throw them off, but also because if they notice where I am, they'll start to prop themselves up, and their expression, their body language becomes very canned. And I hate that more than life itself. So that's why I'm ducking and diving, rolling around on floors. I use a knee pad when I shoot so I can bend a lot so that I don't distract them. And then on the participant side, when they're engaging with others in activity, when they're networking, when they're taking notes or asking questions, my job is to be as far away from them so that they don't see me, so that they stay in the moment with the person that they're speaking to, whether it's the person on stage or another participant next to them. I don't want to be a distraction ever, because that's when you lose that really natural expression and reactions that they're providing.
Yeah, absolutely. So for an agent that is, whether they're looking to get, do the portrait photography or hire a photographer for an event, and maybe hasn't done this thing, something like this before, what are some of the things that they can look for in a photographer, whether it's through their portfolio or things that they can determine, is this the right person for me to be able to portray, my brand, and is a photographer that's really good at capturing those emotional aspects in these situations?
Right. So if we're talking about an event, the first thing that I would do is, instead of just going on the Googles, just trying to find someone, I would ask colleagues who they've worked with in the past and see the work that those photographers created for them. Not the work that's on their website, the work that they delivered. Because you want to see the entire album and how they if they've even subfoldered all of the different activities and the different events that occurred during that particular seminar or conference or workshop or whatever it is. You want to see the beginning, middle, and end, because when you look at just someone's website and you don't know who they are, they're going to only put up the stuff that they cherry picked from a wide swath of things. You want to see the good, bad, and everything, right? That's number one. Number two, you want to make sure that they are ideally someone that specializes in working these types of events and works with people like you and have done it recently. You don't want a wedding photographer to come in and shoot this kind of an event. While it can be okay, it is still not a specialist. You don't hire a plumber to do an electrician's job. And that applies to photography as well. While there is this misconception, oh, it's a camera and you're a photographer and you know what you do. The truth is, there are specialties. If you put me in a fashion shoot, I would have no idea what the hell I'm doing compared to shooting a branding session or an event, or in my case, I also photograph books for my clients, their physical books. That's what I know. I don't know the other stuff. And it's important for you to find those types of people to be able to capture what you really need in those events.
Yeah, absolutely. So you just mentioned it, photographing books and things for your expert. And that was a topic that I wanted to get on because, some of our agents, they have so much of their branding materials. And I think, the same things that apply to the book photography can apply to, the agents, and making sure that, outside of them personally, that there are other items that have their branding on it are getting, they're taking images of those as well. So tell me a little bit about that, the book photography and how that could apply to our agents.
Well, let's start at the top.
Yeah.
One of the worst things that you could do is simply post photos of your face over and over and over again. It is basically creating a wall of noise on any profile, including your website, I might add. If it's just you on that page and you work in a service industry, that is a problem. You have a gap. When it comes to talking about books, so for example, for one of the coaches that I photographed, she had a manual that the brokerage put out in terms of listing all of the criteria. It's part of the workshop that she runs to be able to coach her agents. And what we did was I photographed the cover, the logo from several vantage points. I photographed some of the stuff that was inside the book, different chapter titles and things of that nature. And the reason why we want to do that is, aside from not boring the hell out of your audience, the other aspect of it is, once again, showing that credibility. You talk about being a leader, you talk about running these workshops and these seminars and coaching sessions. Well, prove it through your images, and that would be one of the ways to do it. In addition, when you're photographing a book or a manual or even a PDF off of a screen, which I have done, what that ends up offering you and your creative team on the back end is another interesting and compelling way to leverage the logos, the titles, all of the branded materials in a way that could be repurposed into different types of marketing materials. I mean, for example, if there's a cool, variation of a logo for a very specific type of seminar or workshop, and it's photographed in an interesting way where it's justified to one or the other side of the image, you could have someone on your team recrop that image so that it's super bannery, it's a banner shot, and then add in text and branding elements, a call to action, all of these different things, and put it on the website, or you can use it for an ad, or you can repurpose that for a PDF. The point is, instead of just having the two-dimensional aspect of whatever that book is, whether it's the logo or the pages or anything of that nature, when you photograph it and create dimensionality within a two-dimensional space, that offers your team some more marketing assets with which to play with on the back end of receiving those images.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I can just think of, having an agent with their sign out in front of, one of their beautiful listings. And if you take the image, with the sign kind of justified over to the right, now you could create a great banner for your website, or you could crop that down and have it, as a smaller image for maybe a blog that you're writing, whatever.
Exactly. Exactly. But the point here is this, Michael, there's no one way to leverage all of your photos, because everyone has their own preferences, their own taste, their own aesthetic, as well as their own personality and inclinations as to how they want to position themselves. The key with your portfolio, everything included, all in, your branding photos, your event stuff, any other materials or other objects that you want photographed, in as well as your smartphone photos. All of that stuff, you want to have as much variety as possible, because that will create the widest creative latitude that you could possibly have, so you can play and experiment and see what resonates most with your audience while staying true to how you want to position yourself through your brand visually.
Yeah. When you are working with a new client, what are some of those conversations that you're having to be able to kind of get what emotion they want to convey, or how they want to be viewed as an expert?
Right. I'm glad you brought this up, because there is a lot of people out there that still do hey, bring 4 outfits, let's meet at the corner of the park and we're going to figure it out. No one has time for that. And also, you run the risk of wasting a lot of money because you're not getting what you need. So for me, regardless of what I photograph, it could be a book, an event, a human being, portrait session, a team, whatever, there is always a strategy call beforehand. Now, for the branding session, that one involves me asking questions about how they want to be perceived in their images and what aspects of their personality do they want to convey. Those are the top 2 questions. I mean, why do you need these photos? Number one. So it gives me a basic idea of where their head is at. And then I can help fill in the holes about where else they can use these photos. And then the perception question and then the personality question are really the North Stars in terms of figuring out the emotive piece that we need to capture throughout the entire portfolio. And then after those 2 questions, it's about figuring out a little bit more about who they serve, the problems they solve, and then specifically, what does it look like when they're solving their problem? How do they do it? Whether it's, like I said, it's a virtual solution, or it's an in-person solution, it's a one-to-one solution, a one-to-group solution, whatever it is. The point being is that all of that is fleshed out beforehand so that we're able to create a very itemized, specific shot list of the different types of scenarios that have to be captured. Of course, everybody will get their headshots and get some wider portraits and things where they're looking into the camera. But the real meat and potatoes of this and the real customization that occurs here is figuring out the candid lifestyle images. Because once we understand what their day-to-day looks like and what it looks like when they're solving problems with actual clients. That's the stuff that we will capture and in many cases recreate, since we're not in a real scenario. We'll recreate those to make them appear as though I'm a fly on the wall during a real interaction.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so important, having those, having that, real detailed shot list and not going into, not thinking of your needing these marketing photos as one of those things where I'm just going to show up, have a couple of suits, and we're going to knock it out in like 2 hours. This is an investment in your business in a large, this is the front facing, everything about your business is how people create a first impression with you. So if it takes a full day to do this, then it's well worth the investment to do it.
100%. Because at the end of the day, think about how you run your business. Do you run your business roughshod? You just kind of hoping for the best? In most cases, the answer is no. So why would you treat this very important aspect of your marketing in any way but how you treat your actual work?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before we wrap up, is there anywhere where, that people can learn more from you, or if they're in the New York area and want to get connected with you, how do people, get more of your tips for, creating these impactful moments through imagery?
The best place to learn more is my website, johndemato.com, but specifically it would be my blog. I put out 3 blogs a week and really dive deep into different aspects of what visual storytelling is, which is what we've been talking about. And of course, you can find me on the socials as well.
Yeah. Last thing I want to ask you, how have you seen, just how, with the social medias and with the ability to connect to people virtually, and how have you seen those lifestyle images really kind of play into being able, to create those more personal relationships with people now? Because I feel like everybody is so searchable now. And if I'm looking for an agent, I can go on their Instagram pages or whatever it is and really, form a quick opinion of whether this person is somebody I want to work with. Have you seen more people really going towards that lifestyle photography rather than the headshot photography?
Well, it's always yes and, not either or, regardless, because there are times that dictate you using the more traditional directly addressing camera, looking into the camera type photos, especially for promotional purposes. But when you also take into account sharing these day-to-day candid photos, it gives you more, again, creative latitude to be able to share these more nuanced stories that are relevant and valuable for your audience. So it's just a matter of understanding what are you trying to say in this piece? Or what are you trying to say in this section of your website? Or what are you trying to say in this ad or PDF? And how are you thinking about which type of photo makes the most sense? Is it something where it's a compliment and it's a candid shot that visually punctuates the sentiment of that copy that you have? Or is it something where you're being announced or addressed or promoted? Then in that case, the direct address photos make a little bit more sense. At the end of the day, like I said before, there's no one way to do this, but as long as you're purposeful and intentional about how you are using these images, it will make more sense and draw more people in. Yeah.
Yeah, I really do appreciate you taking the time to, share all this with us today.
Oh, not a problem. I can talk about this stuff all day.
I want to thank John for taking the time to speak with us today and sharing his tips for building out a robust portfolio of marketing images. Remember, if you're interested in learning more about these topics, be sure to check out John's blog at johndemato.com/blog. So once again, if you think you or someone else on your team has an incredible story of real estate success or tips to share with our community, send us a message to feedback@smartagents.com. Well, that wraps things up for this episode, but remember, follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts and make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Again, I'm Michael Walter, and we'll see you on the next episode.